I'm Christine Armstrong. I'm part of the delivery team at A Passion for Life. And yeah, just on behalf of the team, just wanted to welcome you. And with Life 22 and the mission fast approaching, we're just, really excited and delighted to be partnering with Passion for Evangelism on this Easter greenhouse scheme. And yeah, we're just really looking forward to seeing how the Lord uses it to grow women and proclaim his good news this Easter. So that's all from me, really. I'm going to hand over to the team now. So I'm just going to hand over to Nay. Thanks for coming, everyone.
Thanks so much, Christine. It's great to be with you tonight. So just a little bit about Passion for Evangelism. We call it PFE for short. I set it up a few years ago, and it's a network of female evangelists. We exist to empower, equip and encourage women to share the good news of Jesus with confidence and creativity. So we're not about professional evangelists, we're about women in the local church who have a passion to grow in creative evangelism. And we're particularly passionate about public evangelism, whether that's talks or on social media or blogs or literature for children that's given out. So you're really welcome here tonight, whoever you are, whether you're a pastor, a person in a church tonight, PFE is for you. So over to Anna.
Thanks, Nay, and thanks, Christine. Just to introduce myself, my name's Anna McCracken. I'm based in Liverpool, and I help to run the Greenhouse project, which I will tell you a little bit about before introducing you to some of the women that have taken part in the project in the build up to Christmas last year, so that you can see a little bit of the kind of things that women have done and how they've used it. As Naomi said, we really want this project to serve people, whatever their situation. It's a very flexible project that will hopefully fit well with some of the women in your life, or even you to sign up to. So I just wanted to start just by reading these amazing verses from Psalm 96, which I think is such a good description of what we want to do at the Greenhouse. Sing to the Lord a new song. Sing to the Lord, all the earth. Sing to the Lord, praise his name, proclaim his salvation day after day. Declare his glory among the nations, his marvelous deeds among all peoples. And I just was thinking about these verses this week and thinking it so sums up what I would love the Greenhouse to be like, about proclaiming God's salvation to the world, but doing it joyfully in song, with this wonderful sense of how good it is for people to hear about his wonderful deeds and all that the Lord has done. And I think that reflects some of the values that we have as a project. The Greenhouse, people often ask us, why is it called the Greenhouse? Well, greenhouses are places where you put plants for a short time in order to be sort of nurtured in warmth and safety before going out into the real world. And that really sums up how we want the Greenhouse to be in women's lives. A short-term support and mentoring program that will enable them then to share boldly the gospel in the real world and be equipped to do that. So the Greenhouse is short-term. It's a 5-week project focused on mentoring women to do public evangelism, encouraging women to share the gospel through their own networks in their own ways that suit them in the situation they're in. We have quite a diverse range of women who get involved, whether that's retired women, students, women from other countries. And the idea really is that whatever their situation, we're trying to encourage them to be creative in proclaiming the gospel in a public way. We really value innovation, as you'll see from some of the examples tonight we're sharing. and creativity and variety. People use the project in a number of ways. So last term, some people got involved who had already agreed to speak evangelistically at an event and just wanted a little bit of help shaping and receiving feedback on what they were presenting. We had other people that wrote poetry and shared it in their networks or through social media. We had people write blog posts, make videos, even write a story, which I'll show you a little bit of in a moment. So we really want it to be a project that serves the church by enabling women just to use it in the way that best helps them and serves their situation. The environment that we try to create is supportive, so people are put in small groups through the project and focused on both the skills aspect and the character aspect of their evangelism. So in terms of skills, there's loads of ways we seek to help them, whether it's practical through helping them with how do you put a video together, whether it's just the sort of skill of creating the evangelistic content in such a way that's really clear and faithful and beautiful and creative. But also we want to focus on women's character, because we recognise that for women, publicly proclaiming Jesus just comes with some nerves, lots of comparison and lack of confidence, and particularly challenging for women sort of putting themselves out there. So we try and do a fair bit of thinking and praying around, you know, how does the gospel being true really help you to take this risk and to feel sort of able to do it. I should say before we hear from some of our guests that we'll have plenty of time at the end for questions. So if you've got any, do feel free to pop them into the chat or save them up for the end. But the main thing I want to say, if you're here as a church leader, is to be thinking of women in your situation that you think they're sort of at the beginnings of exploring doing evangelism, or perhaps have never thought of this before but want to give it a go. This would be a great place just to help them explore those gifts, but also commit to doing something and taking that risk. And so I'm going to introduce you now to Lynn, who was one of the participants on the greenhouse last term. Lynn, do you want to just say very quickly who you are and where you live, and what you do in normal life?
Yes, so I'm originally from Mexico. Good evening, everyone. I've been in the UK since I got married in '97, apart from 14 years, which I was as a missionary working in Chile with CMS. My husband is a vicar, and we are in St. Michael's Gideon Park here in Romford.
Lovely. And Lynn, you did, I'm going to share on the screen for people to see what you did on the greenhouse last term, which was you wrote a story, and it's absolutely beautifully illustrated. I'm just going to get you to read just a paragraph of it as I flick through the screen so that
you're on mute. Yeah. Okay. On a starry night, it was the time of the year when Christmas decorations could be seen along the street. Some people were again wearing silly jumpers or Father Christmas hats. At school, the choir practice had intensified, and teachers were recruiting people to include in the school talent show or the Christmas activity play. Cassie wanted to stay home under her duvet and wake up when the madness was over.
I've just flicked through a bit so people can see how beautifully put together the story is. I just wanted you to share really with people why a story in this way, written evangelistically, and how did you go about writing it?
I just thought that I've been helping in many things as a vicar's wife in the church. Well, one of them is with SciFan, also with Pathfinders. We're an Anglican church, so we're talking about twins and teens. And I thought that there's a fair group of children that don't really know about the love of Jesus. They're on church people. So I just thought that I could engage with them in that way, more like emotionally thinking about how to convey the love of God. And I love the Gospel of John. which is the one I use in the story, in a way that they can relate to. And I think quite a lot of them need to be honest, and sometimes they do feel lonely, they feel abandoned, they feel that they don't really understand what's going on. So that's what I wanted to start like that. And Christmas could be a very commercial thing for them. And then when they see ads about come to church, they just think like this is another thing to do. So I wanted people to be able to engage with the story from their point of view, how they see it. And I do have a passion for children too, and for youngsters. I think they need a lot of input, and quite a lot of them spend a lot of time by themselves. So I thought that was a good way to do it.
It's absolutely beautiful, both the content and the visual sort of part of it. Just so you prepared it while you were on the greenhouse project with help from your small group and all of that. How did you go about sharing it, and what was it like to share a story?
Well, to begin with, when I wrote the story, I mean, we met up, it's a wonderful idea, and the girls are really supportive. So I chickened out at the beginning. So I thought like, no, I'm not going to be writing for teens because it's not going to work. So I wrote a different article, sent it to Nay and said like, look, don't look at my story. This is better. This is just better. And the girls were like, yeah, no. So it was just super extra supportive to be able to talk about that. And then just thinking, how am I going to do this? And they do give you some guidance. So they suggested just to send it as well to some people, see if they could be published, just like a little track, or I could just go about it the way she has done before, which was just publishing it yourself. But I mean, as you can imagine, Christmas is a really busy time. So just to try to do that in one go didn't really work that well. So I thought that I could just approach Faith in Kids and 10 of those and just say like, you can have it and give it for free. And you don't even have to mention me if you don't want to, but it didn't really work. So what I did is just sharing it in social media on different groups, missionary groups, ministry-wide groups. PFE were brilliant as well, because as soon as I uploaded it, it was like tag, just look at it. So that also helped. And I did print out some of them myself and put them together. So I gave them to my church, and some of the other church people that I know, other churches around, were part of something called Partners in Mission group. So I gave it to them if they wanted to use it too. But I'm also going to use it for this Christmas coming. So I'm going to have more time now to actually prepare a whole lot of them, just be ready, and perhaps do something as well, kind of like as a little representation or a theater little in the church. So it gives you kind of for lots of things, but I just want to emphasize the encouragement that the girls give you to be able to be bold and actually put it there on social media and say like, right, this is kind of my baby, and it's for the glory of God, so it doesn't matter if you don't like it, and let's hope that you can use it. So yeah, so that's how I did it. So Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook were kind of the main things, and it encouraged me as well to open a blog for myself, which I am just finishing it. So it should be open next month probably. Yeah.
Oh, that's great, thank you. I think it's worth noting that story about putting it out there and going to people and getting knocked back is something that we encourage a little bit through the greenhouse, just for the women to have a go at trying to get others to engage with it and not to feel the sort of sense of letdown at any knockbacks that come. And I love the fact that you're able to keep going with this and try and open up new avenues going forward. Could you just share maybe one encouragement and one discouragement about what it's been like for you sharing the story?
I think I would have liked it to be distributed more broadly as a little booklet. So it was a bit of a downer to hear like, Faith in Kids or 10 of those not wanting to do it for free. I would have liked to have a bit more dosh to be able to print it myself. So that was a bit of a downer. But it was a great encouragement to have people in the States that just, you know, contacted me and said, can we have the PDF? We're going to print it here. I was like, what? Yeah, of course you can. Or some people in Switzerland as well, that they were going to use it in the Sunday schools because they thought that they could use it there. So in that sense, that was a really big wow. And just giving a little bit of grain of, you know, of rice to help something and to help children to get to know more about Jesus. And overall, I just think being able to share the story with you guys and with that little group, which were lovely, and people like in Macedonia, I think it was, was brilliant. Just the international aspect of it. That's a great encouragement, I think.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much for sharing it. And I love the thought of it just making its own way out and having a life of its own and getting out into people's hands. So thank you for sharing that. We'll take questions at the end. So if anyone has any questions for Lynn around that, then please do make note of those. I'm going to now move on to share an example of someone making an evangelistic video on the Greenhouse project. We'll talk to Lily afterwards about how she used the video and how she shared it in her networks. But before we do that, I'll just share the video for you to watch so that you can see another one of our content. Right, okay, I have to go back on this. Sorry, I need to, if I change, sorry, I need to just give me one moment before I do this. Here it is. Bear in mind, this is a Christmas video, which I'm going to get to the beginning and share with you. Oh, sorry, this is me, my tech. I think, if anything, this will give you the understanding that we're not professionals. We're all having a go at this. I need to tick those buttons. You'd think after 2 years of Zoom, you would know this by now, wouldn't you? Okay, here it is. Here's Lily's video.
What does Christmas mean to you? Does it mean festive cheer and looking forward to a happy new year? Does it mean lots of great grub and spending time with the people you love? Or does it mean pain, loss and hurt, and for you there's nothing worse? But what if it wasn't just about the presents, the turkey and the tree? What if it was so much more than that, actually a matter of eternity? We know the story well. Mary and Joseph go to Bethlehem, where they're turned away again and again until a little baby is born in a stable, wrapped in cloths and laid in a manger. Bringing glad tidings of great joy as they named this little boy Jesus, meaning Emmanuel, God with us. God, this being who seems so far out there that he doesn't care, who's hidden so deep in the mist it's difficult to know if he even exists. But if you want to know what God is like, look at what happened in Bethlehem that night. The God of heaven came down to earth, and in doing this, friends, showed how much we're worth. This journey from above, a true act of love, as he entered this world of pain, suffering and danger, the ordinary human being wrapped in cloths and laid in a manger. This little baby boy, so meek and mild, came to bring peace to the world, just a child. And this peace is more than just a stress-free Christmas. The Son of God has so much more to offer us. To the grieving, he offers comfort. To the anxious, he offers peace. To the lonely, he offers friendship. And to all of us, he offers a relationship. A relationship with the God who made the universe. And he wants you to be a part of that too. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life. The Prince of Peace came so that you and me could live for eternity. The one at the centre of the Nativity is the embodiment of God's divinity. By believing in him, we are free to let go of the pain and worry, accepting his grace so that we don't have to face an eternity in the darkest place. So I ask you to listen to his voice. I'm asking you to make a choice, because Christmas is a time to rejoice. And if you believe this story is true, what will you do? Will you let Christmas be the same as times past, or will you let God give you life that will last? Because friends, if you want that, then all you have to do is ask.
Sorry, I started playing the video again in the background, so I just sorted that out. Lily, it's really lovely to be able to watch your video and to be introduced to you that way. Do you want to just tell us who you are and where you are and that sort of thing?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so I'm Lily. I currently, I'm in Cardiff. I moved here to study optometry at university, so I now work as an optician. But I'm not from Cardiff, I'm from Derbyshire, so there's no Welsh there. But I've been here for about 4 or 5 years now.
Great. And what you produced at the greenhouse was sort of two different things. You produced a video, but also some spoken word poetry. And I just wondered if you'd done either of those things before.
Never.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. I'm not actually, well, I wouldn't call myself a creative person. And so, you know, I'm actually very grateful to the project for kind of encouraging me to push myself out of my comfort zone. Because when we were chatting about what to do, it was kind of like, oh, well, yeah, you've got this free reign to do anything you like. And I was like, okay, let's give this a go, because if it fails, then people are going to be supportive about it and nice about it, you know. So yeah, nothing like that before, but I'm glad I did.
Yeah, so completely new sort of genre for you. What were the challenges then for you in making it?
Yeah, I think it, as I said, I'm not kind of naturally creative. I haven't naturally got a lot of rhythm or anything like that. But I think we wanted to get across to people the idea of the incarnation and how important that was, you know, as kind of a life-changing thing, and to take a topic and a story that people know really, really well, and retell it almost, but with an emphasis on the fact that it's actually super important rather than just a story. I think I found it challenging to try and emphasize the right bits and not just retell it in terms of, you know, this is what happened, you know it, some of you were in it as a child. But I wanted to, yeah, really exaggerate that, and then making it kind of rhyme and flow. Some words don't easily rhyme. So you kind of have to put them in the middle of a sentence somewhere. And yeah, I think, go on.
No, so there's the challenge of creating something, the challenge of trying to get people to engage with it, even though they think it's a familiar story. How did you go on to share it, and what was that like? What sort of reactions did you get?
Yeah, so I put it on my social media and made it available for people to share, which so many people did, which was, you know, praise God, really lovely. And some, yeah, really positive reactions to it. A lot of kind of, initially, I think, so from my non-Christian friends, particularly in work, they were kind of like, oh, why did you want to do that? Why did you do that? And what is it? Because it's not something that people necessarily know or see very, very often, you know, a spoken word or anything like that. But it was really nice to kind of be like, oh, this is why I wanted to do it, because actually I want a creative way to tell you the gospel. Because we've had conversations in work before about it, and they just kind of bat it away and don't you know, don't latch onto it, but to kind of get them to comment on it and say, oh, you know, what did you think about it? Oh yeah, I liked it. Well, what did you like about it? You know, and have that as a platform to springboard into further conversations was really lovely. And I hope and I pray as well that the other people shared it, that shared it will have impacted their friends that I've never met, you know, that kind of thing. And yeah, I feel like really, really blessed by God to have been able to get it out there in that way.
That's great. It's interesting, I think, the thing with making videos, which quite a lot of people have done on the project, is that it does create new opportunities often to engage with people. I think because it has a sort of slightly more public reach once it's on social media. So yeah, do you feel like it brought you any new opportunities that you, or perhaps opened up conversations with people you hadn't talked to before about the gospel?
Yeah. Well, interestingly enough, one particular one was my my cousin. She lives in Milton Keynes, and we, you know, without going into a deep testimony, my family became Christians when we were when I was 10, when my parents were 40, and so my extended family, it's a very foreign concept to them that we are now following Christ, and I think we often find it difficult to evangelize to family like that. Is the most difficult because they know you so well, and they're kind of like, oh well, we know what they're like. And so my cousin brought it up and said, oh, that was really great what you did, and it really kind of then opened another avenue for me to be like, yeah, this actually has, my faith is a life-changing thing, and it's not just within our family that we believe it, other people believe it as well. So, you know, praying that she'll be wanting to know more about it, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful to hear. I just want to reassure people as well, because I've felt that Lily's video was such high quality compared with anything I could produce. I took part in the project this time last year and shared and made a video that was much more like, you know, shaky handheld. And so we're not sort of looking for everything to be crisp and polished, but we're just looking for sort of authentic ways in which we can open up opportunities to share the gospel with people. And I certainly found sharing the video, I shared it at work, and with a few friends on WhatsApp, and I found that I think there's something about putting it out there publicly that built new opportunities that I'd not had before. Conversations with people that I'd never talked to about spiritual things before, because it was just sort of giving them the opportunity to respond to something if they wanted to. Lily, thank you so much for sharing. I don't know if there's anything else you want to share before we hear from Lois.
Yeah, well, I just, you know, what I guess encourage people is that, yeah, I had no experience in it, and it's possible to do it, you know, with being supported and taught as to the fundamentals of how to create a piece of evangelistic content. You know, it's possible to do things that you didn't think you could do with the Lord's guidance as well. So,
oh, that's lovely. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. That's brilliant. Okay, I'm going to introduce you now to our final guest, who is Lois. Lois, you could just introduce yourself. You're also in Wales.
Yeah, I am. I am living in Cardiff, but originally from North Wales, and Welsh is my first language, so it's late, so you might have a bit of Welsh in there. Sorry.
We look forward to it. Lois, you've shared some pictures with me, so I'm just going to share them, and perhaps as I scroll down you could just talk us through. Now, am I right, Lois, to think that you work for a church?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I work for my church, Welsh Evangelical, Welsh speaking, but as well I work with a sort of a network, WLF, Welsh Leadership Forum, that sort of supported creative evangelism over Wales. So I have a little bit of two hats going on.
No, that's great. And I think that's just helpful to note that if you know women who are in ministry for whom this is helpful, we've talked a lot about you know, women from every walk of life, but it can be a really helpful program if you are already in ministry and just want some support in that. I'm just going to share this, Lois, and you can just talk us through it. There's some lovely photos of things you've done this Christmas through the greenhouse.
Yeah, I've got 3 stories to share. So the project I used for my greenhouse group. By the way, the greenhouse group was great because we decided to meet physically. And it was so encouraging to see one each other like face to face and giving feedback and giving sort of support. So yeah, my sort of project was to so Emmanuel Church in Cardiff. We partner with them, and yeah, they wanted a gospel talk in their wreath making event. So they're in a quite rough bit of Cardiff, and it was fully booked in the first 2 days. People have been longing to go out of lockdown and do it. So they had just under 100 there, which was lovely. And only 16 Christians were seated. So a lot of non-Christian people came in their groups. And my challenge was like not to plonk Jesus at the beginning of the evening. You know, it's so hard because you just want to tell them the gospel, but it has to be edible. There's no point of me giving a lovely gospel cake when, you know, they are already full, or they're sort of not interested or not hungry. So I really wanted to create this as a springboard for deeper conversations. I knew there were Christians dotted around in each table. So I wanted to do something that is sort of what's the name? Sort of relevant, or, you know, related to, and as well something that would help the wreath making. So I looked at ikipea. It's a sort of Japanese way of arranging flowers or giving life to flowers, which is lovely. And this sort of tradition, sort of like a tea ceremony, it's actually from Buddhist background, but it has really interesting thoughts on how to appreciate nature, how to sort of, yeah, think about, so one aspect of ikipea is that when you do it, you think about 3 elements: heaven, human, and earth. You know, and that is naturally the gospel in Christmas, you know, Jesus from heaven coming to human on earth, you know, like, so trying to tie in something that will naturally help them in their wreath making, but only a breath away from the gospel. So it was a springboard then for those groups to discuss more. It's so hard because you just want to say all the gospel, and that was great in Greenhouse because, you know, I often say too much. So at the group, they say, okay, you maybe, you know, you can maybe edit that bit, or, you know, leave them hanging here, or, yeah, maybe don't go into detail into secular issues. So yeah, so that was a great help. Yeah, and a good sort of time. Then we had an activity trail. This was a project we did in church. So it's using children's club and youth clubs. So we advertised there to say, do you want to paint an activity trail? Because they're going up in Cefnon Park, which is quite a nice park that it's North Cardiff, and people will go there for a walk. And so we knew we had a proper audience in Cefnon Park. So we created 10 sort of nativity scenes around the park. It was up for a month in December, and then each one of them had a little sort of bilingual sort of perspective of, you know, the shepherds here, of what happened in the story, and then a QR code if they want to know more, or there was a link to videos or a link to our website as a church. So yeah, here we had more than one child painting the whole thing. But I couldn't find any more pictures, putting them up. And then, yeah, Cefnon Park is lovely anyway. So we had a great response. So we could track people with the QR codes. So we knew how many people were looking at it and clicking on things. And as well, we got, if we do it again, which we probably will, and have bigger, I want bigger characters, but anyway, is to actually partner better with other churches around the area, so their kids can be involved, and we had a lot of friends of friends saying like, oh, are you involved in the trail? Oh, we loved it, and I have been interacting with it, and yeah, reminding them of the true story of Christmas is always key, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh, it's lovely. It's fabulous.
Yeah.
Oh, it's more.
Oh
That's
yeah,
great.
obviously we had to include Herod. Yeah.
It looks quite scary.
And yeah, so we just, the hardest bit was talking with the council. So it's just lots of paperwork, but fair play to them, it was straightforward. It was just a lot of paperwork. But yeah, so for example, they wouldn't allow us to put stuff on trees, only on objects. So but we, you get your way around it. And then lastly, I want to share my sister-in-law's story. So she was in my greenhouse group as well. And she was originally thinking, oh, like she's quite good at social media. I'm not very good, but she's quite active on it. And she was thinking, oh yeah, okay, I'll do something on social media. But as she was like, as we were exploring what she could do, she felt more and more uncomfortable and more sort of felt it was a little bit unauthentic for her to do it, or felt a little bit not quite intuitive, so she didn't sit right with it. Yeah, we put that aside. I'll come back to that later. And then what she decided to do was to do an in-person event. So she just had the baby, Olwen, the cutest baby alive. From a perspective of Nancy, and she just so there's a village sort of children's sort of toddlers group, I think run by the local church, but yeah, she's new to motherhood, and these women are quite new to motherhood as well. She only knows them through this once a week hour slot, and she's like, hey, these are my sort of future friends. These are the people I want to invest in, and being sort of yeah, was it strategic? I can't say the word. Yeah,
strategic.
That's it. Yeah. So she invited them over for a baby Christmas party. So she made them all make decorations, so putting their hands in clay and making it an ornament. She made a lot of food. She had prepared to sing songs as well, but it was so crazy they didn't have time for that. And just a time to come to know the mothers. And she had made a really amazing goodie bag with a Christian kids book, some handwritten personal invites to her church, because it's easy to put a flyer in, but she was like, actually no, I wanted to actually be personal. So she made them a little note with the invitation, and then she bought everybody, the babies and the mums, a present. She is OTT, like, but that's her character. So and it was wonderful. So one mother, she's an immigrant, has said that she had never, since being in Britain, been in somebody else's house. And showing hospitality was a big thing. So she stayed there for 3 hours after the party, because she was so encouraged by the love that Jenny was showing. Another mother came to Jenny's church events. So she brought her family to the carol service and another Christmas event they were doing. And since then, they have actually been meeting up outside of the usual church sort of children's playgroup, and going to each other's houses, and had real friendship, going for walks. And knowing Jenny, she'll be starting to do one-to-ones with some of them soon. So that was really encouraging. So she even though she felt she couldn't do social media, she could build community around her. But the ironic thing, which is the funny story, is that we nearly lost Olwen over Christmas. She was very, very ill. and it was heartbreaking because, you know, Jenny was the only one who was able to go to the hospital, and it was hard. So, and lots of people were praying, and Jenny felt the only way I can communicate to so many people, I can't, you know, text everybody, was to put things on social media. So she just shared like the updates about Olwen, you know, her thoughts, you know, her worries, you know, news and stuff like that. And she had, we praise God that Olwen is totally fine now. She's totally recovered. But the opportunity that Jenny had on social media was incredible. So she was able to share authentically how she felt, how God was her rock, how God was her peace at this very traumatic time when my brother, her husband, couldn't go into the hospital. We were like waving outside of the window, having a child who's, you know, on death's door, and she was able to communicate the gospel so clearly and well, just because the sort of the experience she was going through was authentic. You know, it wasn't a stage, it wasn't like, oh, I think this, but she was going through the pain and really sort of sharing how the gospel sort of sustained her through that. So yeah, she did social media as well. She did.
Under some duress, I imagine. Well,
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that. And that's obviously been a hugely traumatic time. So thank you for sharing that story as well amidst all the others. I think the thing that really struck me with all your slides was just the real love and care that had gone into each of those events. Obviously, in-person events, you know, we're just getting back into that, aren't we? And just the opportunity you Christians had to you know, do that so joyfully is really wonderful to see. And I hope that's given everyone just a little flavour of the kind of ways people have used the greenhouse. So you can see from what we've shared, it's really diverse. People using their own little situation, whatever that is, to create opportunities and to be spurred on in their evangelism. Whether that's, you know, in a room full of 100 people or a little group of baby friends, through a story, through a video, however the opportunity looks for you. I'll just show you what the greenhouse will look like this term. So we're kicking off in March to build up to opportunities for women to share the gospel proactively at Easter time. And this is what it looks like. So on the 7th, starts the week of the 7th of March, women will have time to watch a training video, which is being recorded already. A woman called Hannah Steele, who's written this book, Living His Story, has done that for us, thinking about how you share the story of the resurrection in today's world. And some reading time, an article written especially for the Greenhouse Project this term around Christian character and the sort of, what it means to trust in Jesus as we do evangelism together. The week of the 14th of March, we'll meet in our small groups together just to discuss the training video, to sort of decide together how people are going to use the project, and to commit to some of the values of the project as we work together. Then we send people off on their own to do a bit of work to produce a first draft of what they are hoping to produce, whether that's an outline of a talk, or as Lois described, a talk that needed heavy editing by her group, whether it's an attempt at a video that can then be sort of that they can record again in another way if they need help with it, whatever it is. The mentors that we have will offer any one-to-one support in that time if people need it. So there's plenty of support for people. And that, I think, is the crucial week when we really, really want to encourage people to go and sort of set out to take that risk, and to really help each other to do that. The week before, we have a live event together like this on Zoom. This term we're going to have a panel of people who've done Easter outreach, just sharing the different ways that they've done that. And then the groups will meet together for the final time in week 5, just to share their drafts, to feedback on them with each other. Before then, the next week, people do their final changes and share what they've done, or speak at the event they're planning to speak on, or, you know, do the thing that they're planning to do with the project. Where they're shared on social media, we seek to sort of bring that together and share and tag people in so that it gets as wide a reach as possible. But really what we long for them to do is to share them in their own networks with their own friends, using their own sort of opportunities. So it's not just shared amongst Christians, but really taken out to the world. So we've done so much talking, and we've got time now really to take any questions. Actually, see something's come up in the chat. Let me just see. I'll just read this, Jean. I run a book table on my local high street. Children's books are very popular, but I find it difficult to resource, especially low priced ones, especially for 10+ age group. Any suggestions of locating supplies? My very small church is looking to provide a book table for primary school next door this Easter. Again, costs are difficult to meet. Any suggestions on cheaper suppliers? I don't know if anyone is able to answer that question. I haven't got loads of experience of children's bookstores, so Asia Lynn, you might have, and I don't know whether you do know, or anyone on the call, feel free to jot things into the chat or unmute and share.
I just think that perhaps they can reach 10 of those, just explain those things to them. They might have some tracks, and they do have quite a lot for Easter. We were just checking because we've got quite a few in our supply, because I was looking for something. We're having a Narnia service this Sunday, and I wanted to give them something, and there's no, apart from Christmas and then Easter, just some tracks that you can give during the year. But I guess if you're planning to do something like that, if you talk to some of the people in 10 of those, or perhaps the Good Book Company, and explain the situation, sometimes they give you even a special discount or something like that. So that might be a good approach.
Yeah, I know 10 of those. I don't want to sort of answer on their behalf, but I know that they are always keen to supplement where they can if it's being used evangelistically. So that's a really good shout. Thanks, Asia Lynn.
I used Bible Society booklets for kids. So over Halloween we had a sort of like light party, and Jesus is a light. It's translated to Welsh, so they do a deal like 10 for, you know, or 100 for something. Yeah, so I used them in the past.
Oh, great, thanks, Lois. Brilliant. So that's Bible Society. Great. Jean, feel free to come back with more questions if you have them. And I can't see everyone, so if you have a question, please either unmute or pop it into the chat.
For those ladies who have done it before, how many hours is like the commitment, would you reckon? Because I've got a 3-month-old, so I'm on maternity leave, but knowing what is involved, it all sounds really exciting, but I wouldn't want to say, yes, I'll do it without having like, okay, by the way, Dad, you're going to be babysitting because this is going to take this many hours kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. It'd be interesting to hear what your different experiences were for everyone in the group. I would just want to say that it really can be what you want to make it. So there are some commitments around meetings, but we tend to try and keep those mentor meetings to around an hour, at most an hour and a quarter, so that we recognise particularly how busy people are. And then I think it depends on your own situation. So what kind of thing you'd like to do, how much experience you already have of doing that, and how much that will sort of take you. Obviously, I mean, I made a video, and I did it kind of as simply as possible because of time, and shared it sort of, as I said, in a slightly, it wasn't particularly polished, but that just suited me with my commitments at that time. So I think Nay, I don't know whether you have anything you want to add in terms of time commitment.
Yeah, thanks, Anna. In my group last time, there were 2 mums with little babies. We actually met 10 till 11 p.m. That was the only time we could meet. And then around that, it's just flexible, so you can do it whenever it works for you. So I think it is flexible, and we'll put you in a group where you work out when you're going to meet, and if that doesn't work, we'll just shift you to another group. So it's I'd say definitely come and join us, and you'll love it.
Yeah, Jenny had a little baby at the time, and because we were in person, we just passed the baby around.
Brilliant. I love that. Yes, and actually that's something that, you know, potentially now we've mostly done this on Zoom, but last year we just happened to have a group in Cardiff that wanted to meet in person and were able to, so we were able to do an in-person group as well, but we've got flexibility around that depending on who comes forward. Okay, here's a good question. In our context, we're wanting to communicate the gospel of those of other faiths, i.e. Muslims. Are there any mentors with particular interest, experience of communicating the gospel to Muslim women? Nay, I just wonder from your knowledge of mentors, whether that's something we have already or we could look into.
Yeah, I mean, thanks, Samuel, that's a great question. We can definitely find somebody, that's not a problem. So if you wanted to do it, or you wanted women to come and do that, I mean, the church I go to is, you know, a third of people have come to Christ from Muslim, Sikh, Hindu backgrounds. So even just from my church, I could find somebody. So those, because of the flexibility of how we love to do it, we could find someone. There's quite a few people involved with PFE that work with Friends International. So again, there'd be people through that we could find. So yeah, I don't mean to sound too flexible, but really we can do most things that are asked, because the network is so wide, we can find people that can help us.
So I think if someone had a specific need like that, the way to approach that would be to contact you, Nay. So perhaps if you could put your email address in the chat. So obviously sign up through the regular means, which we'll share with you in a bit, but also contact Nay directly just to express particular needs. Do we have to prepare stuff to share at Easter? One thing I'm wondering about is trying to prepare something to share for my 50th in the autumn, when I will have a captive audience. Brilliant. I love that. No, I don't think you do. I mean, our aim is that we have a sort of momentum in all sharing stuff for Easter, but we're obviously, if there's like a better opportunity coming up that we could help you with, we're not going to turn you away because of our sort of neat plans around Easter. So yeah, I think that's how I'd answer that. Please use us in the way that we best serve you rather than you serve us. So something like that would be brilliant, and I think it would be a really fun thing for the group to work on together. That's fabulous. Yeah. Any other questions? Feel free to unmute and ask.
Yeah. Could I just ask Lois a question? Is that okay? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was really interested in your nativity trail, and I was just wondering, did you experience any vandalism?
No, so we chose a park that closed at night. So it wasn't well, I think you can go there at night, but it's in a posh area. That helps. And
Okay.
it does say on the thing it will be closed at night. So we chose something that, yeah. And then because the council we had to agree arrangement, we had to go twice a week around the trail to just make sure it wasn't anything hazardous. So
Yeah.
I think the squirrels did more damage. They really like warm pigments of colour, so they scratched that colour from all of them, but otherwise nothing at all. And people were very good. But we did choose Kevnon because it's quite a safe area. It's a place where Cardiff people will go for a walk. You know, you need a car to go there, so you wouldn't have lots of views.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Actually, just to add to that, Angela, we run quite a few trails locally, and what we tend to do is put them in people's gardens around their houses. So we did a Narnia trail this Christmas, and because it wasn't on public property, there's some quite nice stuff actually, but nothing got stolen. The problem we found is doing stuff with the council, you have to get too many permissions. So that's the opposite to Lois, but you could try that in people's homes, gardens, windows. That works quite well.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you.
I've got a little flurry of questions, so I'll just take them in order. How many times do you run the training in the year? When would the next one be after Easter? I don't know about the summer term, Nay, whether we've got any definite plans for them. Last year we did Christmas and Easter, didn't we? So I think if there's demand, we could run one in the summer term, but I don't know.
Yeah, normally we have a conference in the summer. We've not booked it this year because of COVID and just unsure. in terms of an in-person conference. So we always do it autumn and spring, and if we have a conference in the summer, we run the greenhouse in the conference. So there will be something. It will either be a conference or it will be greenhouse, if that makes sense. The best thing to do is just to have a look at our PFE website, which Christine will put up later, and that will come up with information as it happens. Or you could sign up to our newsletter. I'll put a link for that, and then you'll find out through that as well.
Great, brilliant, thank you. Thank you, Rob, for your encouragement in your question. The material in the training video week 1 is an interview with Hannah Steele, who is the director at St Miletus, I don't know if that's how you pronounce that word, in London. She was a UCCF staff worker years ago and very experienced evangelist. And last year she wrote this book called Living His Story. And the topics we cover in that interview in the training video is basically how do we connect the big story of the resurrection with our sort of life stories today. So she talks quite a lot about being invitational. She's talking loads about the sort of whole concept of the gospel being a story. We talk a bit about how the women at the resurrection sort of witness to the resurrection and the significance of that. So it's a sort of, the training videos have been done differently each time, but this term it's an interview format, and then it goes alongside an article that will be written as well. And no, it's not expected that someone necessarily needs to know the way they're going to present or the context or medium of their evangelism before the programme. Some people come into it knowing that and some don't, and that first small group session, people talk about that, and if people need any more help, the mentor can offer help outside of that as well. So people can come as sort of as ready or not as they want to. How do you organise the small groups? They tend to be about 4 or 5 people, and they're organised pretty much randomly, unless we found there was a sort of group in an area that wanted to particularly gather. So if you had a group in your area and you thought, actually, we'd really like to sort of do this together as a project, I'm sure we could sort of respond to those kind of needs. And then I think there's some...
Actually, just to add to that, Anna, PFE is for women across Europe and even further than that. So if you have connections with church plants in mainland Europe, you're very welcome to invite women to come too. And that's one of the blessings we find, like we were hearing earlier, having a greenhouse group with, you know, a woman from North Macedonia, a woman from Mexico, a woman from Germany. So yeah, please do invite others from across Europe.
I'm aware of the time, so I'll just want to point out before I pray to end that Christine has shared their information about signing up for the greenhouse. So if you know you want to do it, or you know others who you'd like to encourage to do it, please use that link to head people to our way. I should say it costs £15. We used to not charge, but the reason we charge is that we just think people commit to it better. So it's partly to cover costs, but also to really get people to sign up in a serious way. And yeah, then you can sign up for the newsletter, which will have future greenhouse dates on as they come through. So let me just close in prayer. Lord, we want to be people who sing a new song to the nations as we experience your goodness and as we know just the wonder of your salvation. And I pray that you would help us all to do that as we go back into our own lives, but also pray that you'd raise up women this term who can join with us in Passion for Life in building their own evangelistic gifts and opportunities. And we pray, Lord, for the ongoing work linked to these wonderful things that have been shared tonight through these 3 guests, and they're making themselves available to you to be used in your glory. We pray that the impact of that would go on and on for your glory and for your kingdom to grow. In Jesus' name, amen.